Alright, we're going to take a look at factoring out the greatest common factor. That's kind of like the first step we want to do when we start factoring, is if we can factor that GCF out, we're going to be dealing with smaller numbers and less variables, which makes the problem easier for us to continue with. Okay, so we already practiced in a previous video finding the GCF, and the GCF between 12 and 3 is 3, and then the smallest power of x in common here is x to the first. So we're going to factor out a 3x, and then we got to figure out what goes in the parentheses. So this is kind of like the backwards distributive property. And how I find out what's going in there is I'm going to take the 12x squared, and then I'm going to divide it by 3x. So that's going to be 4x. Okay. If I multiply 3x times 4x, 3 times 3 is, 3 times 4 is 12, x times x is x squared, and that's that 12x squared right there. Then we'll do the same thing. 3x divided by 3x is 1, so we get 1 there. And notice if I do 3x times 1, that gives me the 3x. So I get right back to where I should have been. Okay. Alright, what about x squared y cubed z plus x yz? Okay. And we don't have any numbers this time. The coefficients out in front are just 1s. So we need to take the smallest power of each exponent we see, or not exponent, of each variable we see. So we want an x, y, and a z. So we want an x, a y, and a z. And just like we did before, we're going to take the first term and divide it by what we factored out, which is x, y, z. Okay. So I have 2 x's upstairs, 1 downstairs. So we'll have a pair cancel, and we'll have left 1. Then we have y cubed upstairs and y downstairs, so you have 3 upstairs, 1 downstairs, so you have 2 left, and then the z's will cancel out. So I have xy squared left, and then we'll take the second term, xyz, we'll divide that, and we get it just 1. And there you are, there's it factored out. Okay, so we'll do something a little more fancy. 12x squared y minus 28x cubed y squared plus 14x. Okay, and I'm claiming that the GCF here is 2x. So 12, 28, and 14, they're all even, so they definitely have 2 in common. And there's nothing larger that'll work. They all have an x in common, and the smallest x in common is just the first power, so we'll say 2x. And the 14x doesn't have a y, so they don't all have a y in common. And we're just going to play the same game. So 12x squared y divided by 2x. 2 goes into 12 6 times. One of the x's cancel, and we'll have 1x left over. So I'll have 6xy. Then the minus 28x cubed y squared all over 2x. So the 2 goes into 28 14 times, so that'd be a negative 14. One of the x's will cancel, we still have 2 left over, x squared, y squared. And finally the last one, the 14x over 2x. So 2 goes into 14 7 times, and the x's will cancel out. And there we are. And there we have factored out the GCF. And we'll do one more real quick one. 3x squared minus 75. So I'm looking at the numbers 3 and 75. They don't have an x in common, so I'm not going to worry about the x. 3 and 75, I know that 75 is 3/4, so they do have GCF of 3. So we take the 3 out. 3 times x squared is 3x squared, and then 3/4 is 75 cents. And there we have factored out the GCF.